What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the link up with your boy Efrum and Derz. I know it's been a while, but we apologize. But we're back. Champions League knockout stages is just the qualifiers pretty much just ended. We have the draws, Premier League updates. Bodo Glimt is the new Ajax. Who's your guys' favorite for the Champions League? We're gonna give you our thoughts. We're gonna give you our opinions. And yeah, a little just quick update from us. But yeah, really excited to be back. Say what's up, there's
What's going on, guys?
and I love the energy. But yeah, man, Bodo Glimt, are they the new Ajax right now? What's going on? Are they gonna take on and win the whole thing? Like what are you looking about Bodo Glimt? Do you think they're gonna do it against Sporting, or do you think they're gonna knock out Arsenal? What's good with them?
You would kind of assume so based on the teams that Bodo Glimt has played against, and they've kind of gotten a result against. The last four games have been the two games against Inter, the game that they beat against Atletico, which bear in mind they beat both games against Inter Milan to qualify to the next round. They beat Atletico, and then they beat Man City also. Before that, I believe they beat Juventus. So definitely this sort of giant killer, kind of like similar to um, sorry, they lost to Juventus. They lost to Juventus, but in the recent form, they've been doing really good. Uh, but anyways, they've kind of like been this sort of demon slayer, if you want to call it, this sort of David versus Goliath situation where same thing with Ajax, where they were beating big teams, Real Madrid. Who else did they beat? I think they beat Juventus too,
Atletico.
leading up to that run, that Champions League run, back when Ronaldo was at Juventus. So Bodo Glimt is kind of giving sort of those kind of sparks. I think they've had kind of a little bit of I wouldn't know. Would you consider it a plus that they haven't had any league games, that they've only had Champions League games to focus on in the last month?
I mean, they're not playing, they're not getting tired. The whole time they have right now, it's dedicated to beating their opposite team, so they're able to find different strategies, find different techniques, whatever, a game plan where it's like, all right, we know how, for example, Inter, they probably this whole month was just looking how they play, looking what'll work good against them. All right, now let's make a game plan to go against them. And they've obviously executed. Maybe the same thing with City and Atletico Madrid. Um, but yeah, maybe not having these game times, you would think, all right, they're not playing right now. Maybe they're going to be out of form. But the whole time they're just training, they're just perfecting their game plan. And I mean, like you say, they're a demon slayer right now. So it looks to be working. It looks to be working. So maybe it's having the extra time to rest and think and just execute is has only been a positive for them.
I don't know. To me, I personally think the more competition you get into, the better form you'll be into. You'll be able to find what's wrong, what's going on, so that you could perfect it going into the next game. But it seems to be working for them. I mean, on a whole other topic, Norway's been killing it right now in the Winter Olympics. Bodo Glimt is Norwegian. There's some stuff going on, I think, in the Norwegian labs right now that we're just not on. That they're able to just perform physically right now. But
They're
it
drinking their
is,
milk,
I
man.
think,
They're drinking their
they're drinking
milk.
their milk. They're definitely supposedly historically happier than the rest of the world in that area of in the world. But I think this is a huge upset. As far as Inter was the Champions League finalist last season. Of course, new management. Some players left, some players joined, but nothing huge. No big signings, no big sales. So relatively the same squad, just a new manager he used to be a youth academy manager, so he had a similar sort of philosophy of how to play and stuff. So you would assume similar things to come. But I mean, this is a failure in my opinion. What do you think is for as far as being the Champions League finalists the season prior to not being knocked out, not even before the actual quarterfinals?
Yeah, I mean, mm, it's a huge letdown, especially for Inter fans. But I think you got to take into consideration, new manager, new ideas, new philosophies go into a team. It's their first season. You still expect an Inter team who's I'm not exactly sure how they're doing in Serie A, but I'm pretty sure they're like up there still,
Their first
at
place.
least top 3. They're what?
Their first place.
See, they're first place. And then you're going into the Champions League in which you finished second place last year, you made it to the final. So
Bless you. But the thing
oh, my
that
bad.
I want to say is it is the same philosophy. It's the same formation. It's the same players. It's just a different coach. I mean, Inzaghi was a really good coach, but I still feel like at its core, it's the same Inter. What's going on differently this season? I mean, you would really have to kind of do a dive into what's going on, like in their league, their first place. You would think good results, or is Bodo Glimt really just that good?
It could be two things. Serie A's level has dropped,
Definitely. I mean, the only team that made it out was Atalanta.
and Inter is first place in their group, and they struggled in the Champions League. And I mean, Atalanta too. They only made it through knockout stage, so it's not like any Serie A team finished in the top 8. Either Serie A really dropped, or Bodo Glimt is really him.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that we're gonna, I guess, see throughout the games. Uh, Sporting, I think, is a good team, but I think just based on form, you kind of want to say Bodo Glimt can edge him.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was like kind of thinking because of Sporting. They're not like they're not one of the top dogs. They do good for themselves. Obviously, battling it out in the Champions League. I can't remember if they almost made top 8 or if they almost didn't make it, but I think they were just right at the cusp of being top 8. Um, but as far as no way, they did finish top 8. No, I'm tripping. Yeah,
Yeah,
they finished top 8, so they didn't even have to play. So they do good. But what I'm trying to get at is because they're not a really top dog. I wonder if Bodo Glimt is going to come into this game and um struggle. I feel like when you play good people, you kind of know how to defend. You just kind of let them work. You don't dive in. Or when you're trying to juke against someone who knows how to play, you kind of could expect some things and then go for the cheeky meg because they're going to open their legs. Versus you going up against someone who doesn't know how to play as well, and they do different things, and then you just don't really know how to play against them. I feel like it could be a similar situation now where it's like, all right, well now it's you're not playing the elite style football. You're playing more physical. You're just trying to get the goals. Things can be um a lot more to the players rather than a game plan or strategy plan. And like, do you get what I'm trying to say? Maybe because they're not one of the top dogs, they could find themselves struggling. And I wouldn't be surprised if Sporting, although because of Bodo Glimt's recent games, um, Sporting could come out with the dub. And I wouldn't be surprised. It could be just a matter of that.
yeah, I definitely get what you're saying because all those games, Bodo Glimt had significantly less possession. So they were more of the team that countered, the team that kind of absorbed pressure and then looked for the channels to kind of find the goal. And Sporting might be the team where they kind of have to show a little bit more, have a little bit more possession, um, and see what happens there. I mean, it's a good test. It's a different game, a whole completely different game, especially when you're giving the other team all the opportunity to create, and you're just looking for the counter. I think this game's going to be a little bit more end to end, where we're going to see both teams have chances and maybe not hold so much possession. They might try to both try to counter each other, which will be interesting to see. But I mean, that's just as a wrap up for Bodo Glimt. I think Bodo Glimt can edge them just because you kind of want to the emotional part wants to tell you like, come on, dark horse, just keep on running, just keep on doing your thing and see where they go. But well, I mean, Sporting is definitely a team to be to have respect for, especially since they finished in the top 8. I would like to see Bodo Glimt just for the story, and especially for their form. I want to say Bodo Glimt, but yeah. Any last thoughts before we move on to another game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Bodo Glimt fan right now. Not just because, I mean, yeah, it's a great story. Dark Horse, they've been beating all the big teams. You want to see us how far, you want to see them go far and see how far they could really go up. But honestly, the way they played against Inter, some of their goals, they've just been top class, man. I love their football, and at the end of the day, we're football fans. We want to see good football. So I've been liking the way they've been playing. I've been liking the way they've been scoring goals. So like I'm all bought in, man. I hope they don't, I hope Sporting isn't where they, get the less end of the stick, but let's see how far they go. But yeah, as far as the rest of the Champions League, I mean, I think the teams that were meant to win won their knockout game. So not really gonna go too far into that besides I mean, I guess Galatasaray Juventus was quite and I did want to go into that a little bit because Juventus got a red card that second game, which in my opinion was never a red card. They both jump up, he falls, he just so happens to land on the back of his heel, which is very unfortunate. There was no sense of like the, there it wasn't on purpose. And he just catches his ankle and he gets a red card for that, man. That's never a red card. They both jump, he lands on his foot. It's accidental. At most a yellow card, but he ends up getting the red. Very unfortunate. Juventus, who already needs like 3 goals, is a man down. And shout out to Juve because they fought. They got the 3 goals. They took it to extra time. But with the man less, you're gonna be working more and you're gonna try riskier attempts. And I feel like they got tired towards the end, and Galatasaray was able to just wait it out, get the 2 goals at the end, and just close the game out like that. But I mean, shout out to Juve. They did what they could with 10 men, and very unfortunate uh, because I didn't think that was a red card. I don't know how you saw that, but that's never a red card in my eyes.
Yeah, I think this is a red card by the book. Like, okay, studs hit an area above the ankle. That's a red card. I think because they went to VAR, it's kind of hard to argue it when you have other clips. But definitely, that's when you need to say, okay, the rules are the rules, but we both know the intention. We both know what was really behind that tackle, if you want to call it a tackle, and it wasn't a red card. But by the book, technically, it is a red card. It's one of those situations where it is what it is. I think the main issue here wasn't about the red card and how they came back, but they didn't have the legs for the overtime, and they ended up ultimately losing. The issue here was the first game. Juventus should have never lost that first game. Okay, you're in Istanbul. Obviously, they have crazy environment, but to lose 5-2 that first game was definitely throwing away this leg. So ultimately, that was what led Galatasaray into the next round and ultimately kicking out Juventus out of this Champions League. Too many mistakes defensively, and yeah, ultimately that was the real cause for this leg to go the way that it did. And I think it's fair to say that Galatasaray should be in the next round because of that first game, because of how dominant they were over Juventus in that first game.
Yeah, that was a crazy first game, 5-2. So yeah, we'll give it to Galatasaray. So now teams have made it. We got the playoffs. We got the pretty much the tickets to each teams, who they're gonna face. We got the drawings done. Yeah, so I'm gonna go over all of them. I'm gonna just name them. We're not advanced as far as just putting up a screen on the for you guys to see. So I'm sorry, guys, but I'm gonna just go over them. If you wanna search it up, go to Google real quick. But you do have PSG versus Chelsea, which is gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be a good one. Galatasaray, Liverpool. Can Liverpool get their leg back against Galatasaray? And you have the one that never fails, Real Madrid, City. You have Atalanta, Bayern, and then on the other side you have Newcastle, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Spurs, Bodo Glimt, Sporting, and Bayer Leverkusen and Arsenal. So I don't know how you want to do this. Do you want to go over our predictions, like for each game, or
Yeah, we could just say who we have going through from the top. We
all
could
right?
start
So we'll
with
start with the
PSG,
first
Chelsea,
one:
and then work.
PSG, Chelsea. I'll let you go first.
Okay, so for the PSG Chelsea game, there's two major things that I think are going to play a huge factor in this. Is that PSG has not shown that spark that they had last season going into the second half of the season that I was kind of hoping that it would come out in order to really say, yeah, they're favorites to contend for the Champions League. Another thing is they had quite a few injuries in the last game versus Monaco in the last leg. Fabian Ruiz, Joao Neves, Osman Dembele, which these are pretty important players to Luis Enrique's system. So they're going to be back for this game. And the thing about Chelsea is under the new coach, they've been doing pretty good. They just lost today against Arsenal, but their form has been pretty decent. He hasn't lost a game in the Premier League until this game. Um, and the only games he's lost was against against Arsenal in the EFL Cup semifinal. And I believe that was it. Those are the only games that he has lost, the new coach for Chelsea. So definitely seems like things are working out for Chelsea a little bit better. But at the end of the day, I think this PSG squad, the last Champions League winner, you kind of don't want to bet against them just because at any point they could just flip that switch and they'll do it. I think that Chelsea has found a decent form, a little bit more of continuity because they were so great, terrible, great, terrible, great, terrible, so much spikes, so much bipolar form. But I think now they have a little bit more consistency, but I don't think it's enough to beat this PSG squad, especially when they're inspired. I think they've been yet to be tested, really. I think the only hard game they've had this season was against Bayern, and they lost 2-1. But ultimately, I think PSG is gonna edge Chelsea, in my opinion.
They're gonna edge them.
They're gonna edge them. They're gonna keep them right on the edge for the
Yeah,
last minute winner.
they're gonna be gooning.
They're
But
gonna be gooning, yeah.
fuck. All right. So yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, PSG has definitely not been looking as good as you expected them to be, especially because they won everything they could last season. I don't know if this is just a thing PSG does, where they're kind of all right throughout the season, and then once playoff kicks, they just turn it up. They don't have a difficult league. They're typically first all the time. Champions League is really what they play for. Um, so throughout the league, I don't know if they just, they're on cruise control. Comes playoffs, they turn it up because we had a similar situation last year. They didn't even finish. They didn't make top eight, and Liverpool finished first. PSG makes it in the knockout. Uh, they face Liverpool. All of a sudden, PSG is good again. Knock out Liverpool. They weren't taken seriously until they knocked out Liverpool, and then they just knocked out every team, whoever they face. So it could just be PSG turn it up on playoffs. We see this in American football with the Chiefs. They typically say the same thing. Obviously, not this year. They didn't even make playoffs, but it's a story for another day. But Chelsea, the thing with Chelsea is they're just so inconsistent. Like, all right, yeah, they're not doing too bad, but they tied to Burnley at home. They just lost to Arsenal, and then within the time they're gonna play PSG, they have a game in between Newcastle. And then here's what I think is bullshit, man. All right, PSG. would also have a game in between the Champions League with Nantes. And then you know what they did? They postponed the match. They had an agreement with Nantes to agree to postpone the game, so that way they have a whole week of break in between the both Chelsea legs. You know, which Chelsea can't do that. They can't just tell Newcastle, "Hey, bro, let me get an extra rest day. Let's play like 2 weeks from now. How about we do that?" You know, they're not going to do that. Newcastle is, Newcastle could probably use the rest too, but the Prem will never allow that. You know, there's too many games going on, and then it just won't happen. You know, and what's that tell you about the League 1? You know, it's not a serious league. If PSG could just be like, "Hey, bro, I can't come in this day," you know, it's like calling out for work. You know, like I'm not gonna make it this day. Just I'll come in next week, whatever. I got bigger things to do. And they're like, "All right, yeah, bro, it's chill. We'll just move it to next week. Don't even worry about it, big bro." Like, come on, that shouldn't be allowed. You know, in my opinion. And now, so I think that I had PSG winning this regardless due to Chelsea's inconsistencies. Um, but now with an extra, a less game in between the legs, I think that's just extra time for PSG to rest. All right, they took game one. Now they're gonna go away at Chelsea with the whole week's break, with the whole week of game plan and tweaking things, and you know now they're gonna go in just as strong. Chelsea still has to play Newcastle, and then 3 days later has to play PSG. Both games are at home, but Newcastle is not a tough cookie, so it's gonna or Newcastle is also a tough cookie. So their players are gonna be tired. They're still fighting for top four. So if they wanna be Champions League again next year, they really gotta get as many points as they can. And then now they're fighting against PSG to stay in the Champions League. So I think Chelsea gets the short end out of the stick. This one is bullshit that PSG could just do things like that. Tell Nantes, look, bro, hook it up, And I don't know. I don't think that should be allowed. If you can't do it in the Prem, you can't do it in any other league, but that just tells you what the league really is about. But like I said, I have PSG passing. I don't know how you feel about that. I don't know if you've heard about that or not, but
Well, the whole situation with Nantes, I know a lot of teams do that outside of the Premier League, or I should say a lot of leagues do that, the lower leagues, because it is beneficial for them to have a team go far in the Champions League if their league isn't that strong, just because of marketing, just because of potentially just bringing more eyes to the league. If you see like Bodo Glimt going through all the way to the Champions League final, you might be like, oh, what other teams are in Norway that I should be looking out for? What other players play in Norway? If Bodo Glimt is that good, we want to get them sort of rights to maybe have their games being played on ESPN. Now all the Norwegian league is on ESPN with American US, dollars being invested into them. So it's I understand why it happens, why Nantes would kind of fold the knee and be like, yeah, we could postpone it because it ultimately helps them out if PSG goes far in the Champions League. But it is kind of bullshit, but it is what it is. Ultimately, even if PSG played that game against Nantes, I think that PSG would beat Chelsea.
yeah, me too. But just having that extra game and it's just kind of like a big, I don't know. I think it's a big middle finger to the rest of us, but hey, it is what it is, right? It's going to bring eyes. It's all about marketing. It's all about the money. So we'll allow it. We'll see what they could do. I kind of want Chelsea to win now just because of that. Not gonna lie, but we'll see. Next game, Galatasaray Liverpool. So with this, Liverpool had played Galatasaray in the league phase where Galatasaray smashed him. They were in Turkey, and everybody was giving Turkey their props just for their, pretty much for their fans. The ambiance you get at their stadium is ridiculous. And they know how to throw a show. Apparently, like Galatasaray fans went to the hotel of Liverpool the night before and were just throwing fireworks. They weren't letting them sleep, everything, all that. they have some true crazy fans, man. Which is why I want to go to Turkey one day and go to a Galatasaray game because I want to experience that, man. But yeah, first game is gonna be in Galatasaray on a Tuesday, and then next week at Anfield on Wednesday. So my, my heart, where it lies. But I just think, right now Liverpool is in better shape than they were than the earlier in the season. Um, Galatasaray, I mean, they still look good at home. We may not beat them in Turkey. We just gotta hope we don't get smacked online with like Juventus did, and then come Anfield. I mean, anything could happen in Anfield. Look at Barca 4-0. Uh, so I think no matter what happens in Turkey, we're taking the dub home in Anfield the following week, and I have Liverpool going through. Surprise, surprise. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so definitely, like you mentioned, Galatasaray has an incredible atmosphere. Their stadium with all the fireworks that they actually use or the flares that they use during the games, it's definitely an intimidating stadium. But on the other side, we all know how difficult it is to play in Anfield. And I guess you could say from recent form, Liverpool has definitely been sort of fixing things. They suffered a loss to Manchester City recently, but other than that, it's been just wins in the last, I want to say, 7, 8 games. So definitely, you would kind of expect Liverpool to get the job done. And then on top of that, when you look at the games that they have between now and throughout that draw, they're relatively easy games where they can rotate the squad and kind of focus on the Champions League to try to get to that next round. It would be cool to go to Turkey, not just to get our hairlines fixed, but just to be able to see that sort of atmosphere of
Yeah,
what Istanbul has. But I mean, like you said, Anfield has a crazy atmosphere as well, and I think that they'll be able to get the job done. Um, what you said was kind of, I think, I don't know, because you said that the first game was when Liverpool was kind of shaky, but Liverpool had gone into that game winning their first 5 games of the season, and that was the first loss of the season. So um,
that's where it all
it's kind of a
started.
similar situation where Liverpool can be going into this game with a good run of form, but I think that ultimately, I think finally Liverpool's starting to see the new transfers kind of starting to gel. Ekatika has been on fire recently, and I think that ultimately because of the games that they have around the Champions League, they're going to be able to show full force what they have, and I think they're going to be able to get through. So I see PSG, Liverpool in the next round.
All right, PSG versus Liverpool, a rematch from last season, which would be nice to see. All right, so on the next bracket, so you have Real Madrid City, and then you have possible Atlanta Barcelona. I'm gonna let you start off with your boys in white.
Yes, Real Madrid, Man City. It's unfortunate, but this is probably like one of the easier ties, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be Man City. Real Madrid is just super inconsistent under Arbeloa. It seems like they have found some form. Vinicius is finally starting to gel with the squad, with the rest of the squad, but they still have issues where Mbappe and Vinicius both veer to the left and they kind of get in each other's way and nobody's attacking the center, which is leading to a lot of kind of wasted opportunities to score. Defensively, not the best, especially with all the injuries in the center back positions. And I think Man City has done really good transfer business this winter. And I think the players that they brought in, Semenyo, Mark Gahey, are really good, and they've definitely bumped up the squad. It was exactly what they needed, and I think Pep Guardiola is going to be able to easily outclass the young coach Arbeloa because just the players on top of that, the players are better. The players, Man City is just coming in better form, and Real Madrid struggled with Benfica. So nothing against Benfica, but I mean, there's levels to this game, and Man City is above that level.
Okay, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still Madrid. which they can, even in their off seasons, they could surprise. They've won Champions Leagues where nobody expect them to have the best of seasons, and they go on and win the Champions League. So this is going to be tough, but I think what's going to ultimately kill them is it's going to be their injuries. I'm looking at their injuries right now, and I mean they have no Hoyson, no Militao. Although Militao is mid March, so he could come in second game. Kamavinga doubtful. He has a tooth injury. Bro doesn't know how to clean his teeth. Bellingham late March, so maybe we'll see him second round. Mbappe mid March. Asensio. I mean, that's only a plus for Real Madrid in my opinion. But yeah, you look at City. I mean, Haaland should be back mid March. Viol is out. And as far as starters, that's pretty much it. I mean, O'Reilly just got hurt, says it's a knock, so I mean, you should expect to see him back. Real Madrid really has no center backs, and like you mentioned, Arbeloa has been inconsistent. Although they've only had one loss in the last 5 games, City has gone undefeated in the last 9. City has found a good form as of late, and I see them. Typically, this is where City likes to turn it up, similar to PSG, but City will struggle throughout the first season or half of the season, and they're struggling, could be losing a couple games. And then second half of the season, they pick it up. They typically go on crazy runs. They win other matches. Champions League is a little different. You have a lot of elites of the elites. But yeah, I think the experienced City is going to knock out this Real Madrid. But I wouldn't consider this to be um, it's too straightforward just because Real Madrid is Real Madrid, and they have Trent, so anything could happen. But moving on, you have Bayern and Atalanta, which I think is going to be one of the easier ones to predict. I mean, Bayern, if you look at Bayern, they just beat Dortmund. Um, I think it was yesterday actually, which was their competition, who was their title race, and they just separated the gap just a little bit more. So moving on to these games, they could kind of rotate some players throughout the league. You have an Atalanta who, I mean, also beat Dortmund to knock him out, but it was a close fought battle. I mean, so was Bayern Dortmund, so. But I just think Bayern has more depth, stronger players, hungry players. You have Harry Kane, Olise, Luis Diaz, just scoring goals for fun. Musiala's back, and yeah, so I think we could all say Bayern are favorite for this game, but I don't know. I don't think Atalanta will pull much of a fight, but maybe they'll surprise us. Who knows? But I got Bayern and City moving on from these 2 games.
Yeah, I think the Bayern game is definitely like like the biggest mismatch out of all of the games. The biggest gap as far as quality of squad and everything. So I have Bayern going through on this one.
Yeah, I don't think much has to be said about that. On the other side, we have, which I think is quite the interesting bracket. You have Newcastle versus Barca, and then you have Atletico versus Spurs. So you have two La Liga giants versus two fifth, sixth type play teams from Premier League. Although Spurs is fighting relegation right now. Newcastle, were in the top 4 race, but as of late, they have just not been doing too well. Newcastle has an insane amount of crazy games during this whole month. So not only do they have to play Barca, they're also going to play. I think they play Chelsea. Hold on, they play in that same month. They got to play United, City, Barca, Chelsea, Barca. Uh, which is a crazy run of games. You can't even rotate players. You're still fighting for top 4. It's just going to be a mayhem and hell for the players of Newcastle. They just lost to Everton, and yeah, so I mean, it's not looking too hot. I mean, on the other side, you could argue Barca is also fighting for the league spot, but I don't know. Through the form right now, I think Newcastle is going to take the L. Barca, you know, they've they're also very inconsistent right now. You can't say the way they started the season versus now. At the start of the season, you would say, "Oh yeah, this is a no brainer." But Barcelona recently has been a little bit inconsistent too. So um, you can't say too much for this, but I just think the run of games Newcastle has, the run of form they've had, is worse than Barca's. Lamine Yamal just scored a hat trick, so we could see Barca back in a little bit of form. I know they've had injuries, so I have Barca taking that one. And before I get to Atletico Spurs, I want to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, so in this game, it's unfortunate the fact that Newcastle has such a hectic schedule. Um, I mean, on the other side, Barca does have an issue, has a pretty bad, or not a bad schedule, but like a harder schedule as well. It's not going to be such an easy run of games. They have Atletico Madrid in the Copa del Rey, which they lost the first leg 4-0. So they're going to have to try to go in with their full strength squad and try to revert that. I'm sure they're going to go into this game trying to revert that, right? They're not just going to give up and be like, okay, well, we have other things to worry about. So they're definitely going to have extreme fatigue after that game because they're going to be they're going to play it like a final. After that, they have Athletic Club, which is another team that's always fighting for the Champions League. So it's going to be a difficult game. They have Newcastle, Sevilla, who beat Barcelona earlier in the season. Again, Newcastle, Rayo Vallecano, whatever, and then Atletico Madrid to end the run of games that they have. So definitely a bit hard of a schedule for Barca, but I think Newcastle's schedule is just so much harder, and I think Newcastle has a decision to make as far as do we continue? Do we really try to invest and continue into this run of form in the Champions League, or do we try to put in our efforts all into the actual league? Because they're sitting at 13th place. With one win, they jump to 10th. So it's definitely tight. They could try to finish like a top 8 sort of position, but they really have to make a decision now, especially with the run of games that they're going to have coming up, where they're going to be super crucial, important Premier League games. Newcastle has to make a decision. Do we continue in the Champions League, or do we continue domestically in England and try to push for, uh, in the FA Cup, they have Man City, which is going to be a huge game. In the Premier League, you mentioned already, Man U, Chelsea, Sunderland, and Crystal Palace. These are huge games, important games that are going to definitely decide the table. Like if Newcastle beats Sunderland, they might jump them. If Newcastle beats, Chelsea and Man U, they'll definitely get the closer to the Champions League's position. So I think a decision needs to be made. And if I'm Newcastle's manager or sports director or owners, it kind of sucks to say, but I would give up on the Champions League and try to put all my eggs into the Premier League basket, so to speak. So for those reasons, I think Barcelona is gonna, ultimately get this job done.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, you said. And then you have Atletico Madrid and Spurs. And I think similar situation for Spurs, only 4 points above the relegation zone. Um, at that point, what do you prioritize? Staying in the Premier League or trying to win the Champions League? And I don't think does winning the Champions League guarantee you relegation? I don't know. There's no way they're correlated.
No,
Um,
no, no.
but which would obviously be dumb because that's the tougher task. But yeah, you have an Atletico Madrid who, you already mentioned they're gonna play Barca Copa del Rey final. They're already 4 up. So I mean, realistically, you don't see Barca really coming up and coming back. So nonetheless, Atletico still have a tough match to play. Got to hold it down. Um, but at a game where they could kind of park the bus more, who are known to defend well, so they could have a chiller run of form. They have Real Sociedad next. They're I don't know. I'd say they're out of the title race. So they really just have the Champions League to play after that. So yeah, this is another no brainer. Atletico is going to pass. If Spurs wins though, it's because I mean, although they're getting relegated or fighting for relegation, they didn't have the best or they didn't have too bad of a form in the Champions League. And Spurs is Spurs against City. They tend to get a pointer or dub. Like maybe Atletico Madrid becomes their next City. And ends up scraping the win. But I'd be very surprised. I got Atletico passing. We're gonna have a La Liga, another Barca Atletico Madrid game incoming in my eyes.
Definitely. And I mean, I think the same thing. Atletico Barca is going to play the next round. And moving on, I guess, to the next bracket or side of the bracket, we have the Bodo Glimt Sporting, which I think we really already spoke mostly about. It's going to be cool. A good game to see is Sporting going to be the team to sort of let Bodo Glimt control the tempo? Is Bodo Glimt going to choke under that sort of change in pace, or is Bodo Glimt going to allow Sporting to, control the tempo and continue to try to counterattack? I think it's smarter for Sporting to let Bodo Glimt try to hold more possession just to see what they could do, since we've seen them do better without the possession. But like I said, my heart tells me Bodo Glimt, and so does my brain. So I'm going to say Bodo Glimt.
Yeah, I think I'm a ride with that. I said earlier, I'm a fan as of now, and although Sporting, it's don't underestimate them. I just really like how Bordeaux Glimt has been playing, what they've done, and I want to see them go as far as they can. And yeah, so I got Bordeaux Glimt. Next final matchup, we got Bayer Leverkusen and Arsenal. As far as Bayer Leverkusen, they've tied their both last games, Olympiacos, and well, to be fair, they were already up on, or is it Olympiacos? I don't know, but they're
It
sitting
was.
sixth in the league. So they're also fighting for top four, and you have Arsenal who's fighting for first place, which is winning the Prem. But I just think Arsenal is the better team. But Bayer Leverkusen still is a good team. I don't think this is going to be a very pretty game as far as many goals. Arsenal has been winning games, but they typically tend to just, you know, a dub is a dub, no matter how you win it. They're going to get a corner and they'll scrape a 1-0 win or something like that. That's how they've been, in my eyes, playing this season. But they are the better team. They got the depth. They have great defense. I think that's just what's going to give them the dub. I mean, Bayer Leverkusen against Olympiacos, they won 2-0. They couldn't score again in the second game. They're not very uh, attacking threat heavy. Arsenal has a strong defense. I think Arsenal's defense will ultimately win them the game. You're going to have set pieces, FC pulling up, and then you might get like a random Saka goal. But I just don't see Leverkusen, although they had a great season with Xabi Alonso, they've lost a lot of their great players. No more Verts, no more Frimpong. So um, I think this is where the road ends for Leverkusen. I see Arsenal finish top four. They haven't lost a game in the Champions League. They're gonna take another dub home.
Yeah, I think same thing. It looks like it's going to be an Arsenal, potentially Bodo Glimt tie um, for the next round. I think that for Arsenal's schedule coming into these games, they have Mansfield in the FA Cup. Should be easily. You could rotate the whole squad, let all your players rest going into that Champions League game, and then in between those Champions League games, you have Everton, who Everton's been doing pretty good this season, but I think Arsenal's going to try to get the job done in the first game for the Bayer Leverkusen game, so that they could rest not so much rest, but kind of take it a little bit easier in the second game of the Champions League. Because after that, they have Man City in the FA Cup, or not the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup final, which is probably going to be their priority. Arsenal hasn't won anything in the last, well, anything significant besides like the Community Shield in the last 6 seasons. So definitely, this is going to be Mikel Arteta's priority, and he's going to probably try to get the job done in that first tie, which I think, considering the games that Arsenal has from today after this Chelsea game to that Bayer Leverkusen game, and considering Bayer Leverkusen's form, and considering the fact that Bayer Leverkusen has a lot going on in their schedule, I think that Arsenal is going to ultimately be able to be physically well prepared for this game, and just player for player, they're the better squad. So I think we're going to see Arsenal easily kind of get through this.
Yeah, I think so. And did we have any? Did we have the same predictions we did, huh?
Essentially, yeah, I think we didn't disagree on anything. It's just
All
that
right,
connection,
fair
you know.
enough. Either we know ball or we know no ball at all, you know. So we will see. We'll see how that comes. But yeah, we will go into just a quick update on the Premier League, just because it has been a while. But I did want to say, let us know your thoughts on your predictions. If you think we're super wrong on one, let us know in the comments down below. We'd love to have a conversation down there, and we'd love to know your thoughts. So, yeah, moving on to the Premier League, just because it's getting quite exciting. You have a you have a title race going on. City Arsenal. If City beats Nottingham Forest, which you'd expect them to, you only really see Arsenal 2 points above City. And then what's really exciting is the top four fighting right now. So you have United, Aston Villa, Liverpool, and Chelsea fighting for top four, all within a 6 point gap right now. Chelsea just lost, so they're sitting sixth. Liverpool's sitting fifth, but only 3 points under United and Villa. Liver- Liverpool has found some form again. They're already 4 win streak. United is looking really good under Carrick. Is he the truth? I don't know. It seems like it. They've been winning. They just had that draw against West Ham, which ruined it for my boy getting a haircut. So rest in peace to his long ass hair. They did have a tough game against Crystal Palace at home, where you expected them to win. I think they started off losing, and then they ended up doing the turnaround on them. Crystal Palace did get a red card, but a dub nonetheless. And then you have Aston Villa, who has been in shambles lately. They have two losses in their last five, two draws. They've only won one, and they just lost to Wolves 2-0. And for a team who was fighting for first place, now having to fight for fourth place, it's a major drop off. They brought in Abraham, um, and he hasn't really been doing much. Neither has Watkins, so we'll see. We'll see how they do, but yeah, exciting stuff. I don't know what you see from as of late. I mean, Arsenal was, I think last time we left off, they had a 9 point gap, and now they're down to a 2 point gap. So, um, what are your thoughts, There's?
Yeah. Like you mentioned before, Man City typically will have crazy runs towards the end of the season, and I feel like they're in that moment right now. In the last 5 games, they only have one draw in the Premier League. In the last games in general, they've won. They haven't lost since Bodo Glimt, which was in January this season. January this season. So yeah, I mean, definitely turned it up this second half of the season. They only have 2 losses since the year started, which was against Man U, funny enough, because of Michael Carrick's introduction, and against Bodo Glimt in the Champions League, which was an awful game from Man City. Rodri got a red card, and it is what it is. But going into these next couple of matches, I mean, or I guess considering the table, they had that gap between Arsenal and Man City, and Man City has tightened that gap. I mean, Man City is just literally just one mistake away from getting first place, or one mistake from Arsenal's side of things to getting first place again. Arsenal, I think, I mean, I sound like a broken record at this point. They need to be better offensively. They need to create more chances. And when you look at the squad, the games that they've had versus Tottenham, I think you have a lot of pride and a lot of just overall passion for that game, and you go out and you get the result. But if you look at the ties, I mean, they tied to Wolves 2-2 after being up 2-0, and then you tied to Brentford 1-1. Still, I mean, set piece FC, you could call it Haram ball, you could call it whatever it is. People like to argue a goal is a goal, but to be honest, you can't leave games like this. It's not beautiful football. You don't. It doesn't seem like a to me. It just doesn't sound like the champion if you're scoring all your goals from like set pieces and defending all the time. I mean, it is what it is. Jose Mourinho did the same thing when he won it with Chelsea, when he won the Champions League with. No, that was Abramovich. That was another coach when Chelsea won the Champions League. But my point is, Chelsea, or sorry, Jose Mourinho is considered one of the best coaches in the world. He also did stuff like this when he was champion. So, I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes you just got to get the job done, but it's definitely not enjoyable to watch a team kind of just wait for the corner to score. But yeah, like I said, this is looking scary as far as if Arsenal slips up once, I feel like Man City is going to catch them, and it's going to be the same thing over and over again. Arsenal bottled the league. Arsenal bottled the league for another fourth time in a row, third time in a row. So overall, their games aren't relatively difficult. I think that they will become more difficult once they get deeper into the FA Cup. Let's see if they could beat Man City in the Carabao Cup, but Arsenal definitely needs to turn it up. When you look at their squad, there isn't somebody who stands out, which I you don't necessarily need. I think that in Arsenal, Mikel Arteta wants to be the guy who stands out. He doesn't want that player who has an ego who thinks that he's the best. I think he wants to be kind of that person. Um, but when you look at the squad, Bukayo Saka, I keep on saying the same thing. I feel like Bukayo Saka should have more numbers, um, and he just doesn't have them. So I think that ultimately we'll see how it goes because it's kind of hard to bet against Arsenal this season. We'll see how it goes at the end of March. I think this is going to be the month that decides a lot. Um, but we'll see. But Manchester United again, I love that they're finding form. I really thought Ruben Amorim, and I still stand behind Ruben Amorim being a good coach. I think that the issue wasn't him. The issue was the sports director. The issue was the management above him who were trying to force certain players and certain tactics on him, trying to play a four in the back when you don't get somebody who plays three in the back or five in the back and try to tell him, hey, we want you to play four in the back. Like that's just dumb. So, but Carrick does implement that formation, and I think Bruno Fernandes is finally able to really shine in this formation. Liverpool, like we mentioned, is catching form, while Aston Villa is having a fall from grace. So I think that ultimately, I like the table how it sits right now, but with Liverpool above Aston Villa and maybe even above Manchester United, depending on how their season goes. But Manchester United has nothing else to fight for. I mean, if Liverpool's going to try to go deep into the Champions League, Manchester United is going to have the edge on that when they just have to focus on the league. And then Man City and Arsenal, I think that those are the only two teams that are realistically in a title race. And like I said, it's kind of up to Arsenal to slip up and lose the lead. But we'll see. I mean, would it be considered a win if Arsenal wins the Champions League and they lose the Premier League?
Yeah, and I think Arsenal fans could agree. A Premier League would be nice, but they've already won the Premier League. They haven't won a Champions League. So they. I'm sure if you ask an Arsenal fan what they would prefer, Champions League or Premier League, they choose the Champions League, and I think that goes for anyone really. I think the Champions League is a lot harder. I've never played in either of them, so I mean, I could just be talking out of my ass. But you do have the best teams of all the leagues fighting and deciding 1-2 matches, games that just to prove it. And these are intense games. So I'm sure they would take it as a dub. I'm sure we'll give them shit no matter what if they don't win the Premier League. Bottlers for the rest of their life, even if they do win the Champions League. But yeah, I would say if they win the Champions League, is definitely a successful season. I think Arsenal would have to win either of those right now because it's been what 7 years with Arteta, and the best thing they got to their name is an FA Cup. That's not good enough. Arne Slot comes in, wins the Premier League his first season. Uh, Pep, many trophies. You have Jurgen Klopp, many trophies. Arteta hasn't won shit, and after being second for so long, and especially this year where they've had such a strong start to the season, undefeated in the Champions League. If you go trophyless, or at least if you don't win one of the two bigger cups, I think that's a failure in Arsenal's eyes. They could finish second, they could lose the final. Arsenal fans are gonna tell you, we made it to the final, we got second, it's a dub, but I don't know, man. You got to start winning trophies at some point. And if there's any time, it's right now. You've put so much money into your team over these last 6 years. You have the depth of you can make two teams out of them, and you don't win anything. Then I don't know. I see that as a failure, especially with how high, how many points you're above City in the Premier League and Champions League, with especially with the run of games that you could be facing. Like Leverkusen, Bodo Glimt. They're not really Champions League winning teams. Um, so you have an easy pathway to the final. You're in first place. It's Arsenal's to lose. Obviously Champions League could go either way, but the Premier League, you had a 9 point gap. You brought it to two. You're biting yourself in the ass. Um, and yeah, Arsenal fans will tell you otherwise. As far as whether they see their season as a success or not, I feel like they'll just be coping. But those who know ball, Arsenal has to win something this year, and it can't just be an FA Cup or Carabao Cup because if you want to be a serious team, you got to win trophies. And Arsenal has been claiming to be a serious team these last 2-3 years with nothing to show for it. So um, I would think so. Now, if they, yeah, I think that's it. That's it too. They have to win either of those two, and if not, then Bottle FC, and they're not
Yeah,
going to hear the end
definitely.
of it. What do you think?
Definitely. I think that, like you said, they have the easiest or the easier run to get to that Champions League final. Um, but I'm sure Mikel Arteta is saying that he wants a quadruple.
Yeah, as I think any manager would say, they want to win them all, especially in the situation they're at. But if you ask them, they're going to tell you, we're just looking at the game ahead, taking it day game by game. Which is a politically correct thing to say. Especially you don't want to get too over your head, say something you don't want to say, and then look dumb. But you always, as a team, want to have that mentality that we can win every trophy. And Liverpool's been in this situation. City's been in this situation. You want to win them all. It's going to be tough. If Arsenal does win the quadruple, then fair play, man. Fair fucking play. I don't think so. Um, I don't even think they're going to beat City for the Carabao Cup. To be honest, like I don't know. I just have Arsenal so engraved into being bottlers that you just expect it. It's just don't say nothing, just wait. And then they'll do it themselves. But if they go on and win every trophy, or at least get even if they get a treble, man, fair play to Arsenal. Um, do I think it's gonna happen? I don't, but yeah, I'm sure they want to win as many trophies as they can. Um, I just don't think they will. And if they go on and win just the Premier League, then good shit. Third time's a charm.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Liverpool was in a similar situation when they were able to get the quadruple. They ended up finishing second in the league, and they ended up losing the Champions League final. So, Arsenal, has to make a decision. I feel like ultimately because the Premier League is just such a difficult league in itself that it's like almost like playing like two Champions Leagues in one single season. Um, I'm currently looking up when Man City won the Champions League, when they finished where they finished in the Premier League. Well, they ended up winning the Premier League. I don't know if they got a treble that season, but yeah, I mean, can they do it? Like you said, take it day by day, game by game is the right answer. But sometimes you do have to make decisions, and I'm sure Arsenal is not going to get rid of this idea that they want to win everything. Um, and we'll see. I mean, it's very, very difficult in this era of the Premier League, in this era of the Champions League, to try to win everything. But I mean, Bayer Leverkusen went undefeated, 2 seasons ago. Who's to say that Arsenal can't do something crazy this season too? So, but yeah, I think that we'll have to see. I think that this is if Arsenal didn't tie to Brentford and to Wolves, right? They had those extra 4 points. I would be sitting in front of you guys saying Arsenal is going to win the Premier League and potentially win the Champions League. But the fact that they tied those two games brings a lot of doubt in my mind, to the point where I think that Arsenal can make it to the Champions League final, but I don't know if they'll win everything.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, especially those last two draws. If they did, they'd be 6 points ahead. You have 9 matches left. Still tough, but I would say they'd win the
More
Premier League.
more of breathing room.
Now I can't tell you that. And then the Champions League is just there's just too many good teams to predict and say, all right, Arsenal finished first in the league, they're gonna win the Champions League. Because it could go any way. You could have the great season and then just have a bad game in the Champions League, and that's all it takes. So I won't make predictions for the Champions Leagues yet. We do have big month this month. Um, it's going to be a huge month, deciding month, especially with the playoffs at the Champions Leagues. Big games for the Premier League. I don't think the Premier League will be decided this month, just because there's still 2-3 months of football to be played, and the table being so tight. I think it is going to come down to the last couple games in the Premier League, which is really what you want. You don't want to see a title being decided in December, January, like when Liverpool won it, because then after that it's just all right. Well, now we just got the top four to look at. But this one we have a title race and we have a top four race that I think is going to come down to the last games, which is exciting, super exciting. Champions League, big games coming up, exciting games, and I just love this time of the year, man. It's spring, starting to feel good. Um, you have good matchups against soccer, and or against in soccer, and just good teams, just good quality football being played around. We go out. If you're in the LA area in California, let us know because we plan on going to either LA, San Diego, catching some of these games at soccer fan pubs out here, which you have fans for specific teams going to those bars and just watching the games live, and everybody just brings such an atmosphere that you feel like you're at the game. Obviously nothing close, like not the same, but everyone's chanting and just singing and having a good time. So if you're out there, let us know, and then we'll love to meet up with you guys and just enjoy the beautiful game together. So I think that is all for us today. Leave a like, comment, let us know your thoughts. We love to hear, and yeah, expect us every Sunday moving forward, and yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Peace.